Her screams echoed through thousands of phones that night. Cora Hawthorne begged her husband not to do this in front of their children, as the Facebook live stream captured every moment. The cramped living room in East St. Louis became a stage for horror, with 3 young children huddled in the corner, witnessing what no child should ever see. The oldest boy, barely 12, tried to shield his little brother's eyes while their sister stood paralyzed, unable to look away. Otis Hawthorne's voice remained unnervingly calm as he announced to his growing audience that they were about to witness what happens when a wife doesn't listen to her husband. The viewer count climbed rapidly, dozens, then hundreds, then over 1,000 people watching helplessly as a domestic dispute escalated before their eyes. No one knew exactly where the Hawthornes lived. No one could step through their screens to intervene. Cora backed away, hands raised. "Baby, please, we can talk about this." "We done talking," Otis said, his voice dropping lower. "You put our business online. Now everyone gonna see what happens next." He moved toward her, blocking the camera's view momentarily. A thud, glass breaking, a child's scream, then silence. The live stream continued for another 4 minutes before blue lights flashed across the walls. By morning, the video had been viewed 2.8 million times. What drove a man to murder his wife while the world watched? Why didn't anyone stop it? And what became of the children forced to witness everything? Welcome to Altar of Secrets, where we expose the darkest moments of human behavior to shine light on warning signs too often missed. The story you're about to hear isn't just about a murder. It's about control, power, and how domestic violence hides in plain sight until it explodes in public view. Before we continue this tragic account of the Hawthorne family, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell to join our community seeking truth behind closed doors. Your support helps us bring these important stories to light. What lessons could have saved Cora Hawthorne's life? What signs did everyone miss? And how do we protect children caught in the crossfire? Stay with us. Some stories are hard to hear, but impossible to forget. As we continue, tell us in the comment the time you are watching and the location you are watching from. Maybe next time we can narrow our crime research investigation down to your area. Back to the case. To neighbors on Cedar Lane, the Hawthornes seemed like any other family. Otis, 38, left for the railroad yard each evening in his worn work boots and heavy jacket, bringing home steady money for 18 years. A quiet man who nodded at neighbors but rarely stopped to chat. Cora, 34, ran a small food operation from their kitchen. Soul food that drew people from 3 neighborhoods over. Her peach cobbler won blue ribbons at the county fair, and her mac and cheese became a staple at church gatherings. She sang in the choir on Sundays, her voice carrying to the back pews. Their children, Jalen, 12, Tasha, 9, and Deshaun, 5, played basketball in the street with other neighborhood kids. Good students, their teachers said. Polite, maybe a little too quiet sometimes. They kept to themselves, said Marla Jenkins, who lived next door for 6 years. I'd hear Otis yelling sometimes, but lots of men raised their voice. Never thought much of it. The Hawthorne house rules were simple but strict. No one answered the home phone except Otis. Cora checked in when going anywhere beyond the grocery store. The children spoke only when spoken to around their father. He wanted respect, said Otis's cousin, Darnell. That's how he was raised, old school values. But respect looked like fear to Cora's sister, Magnolia. She stopped coming to family gatherings, always had an excuse. When she did show up, she watched that man like she was waiting for a bomb to tick down. Behind their front door, the Hawthornes lived by Otis's mood swings. Good days meant laughter and peace. Bad days meant hiding, whispering, and walking on eggshells. No one outside that house knew how many bad days had started adding up. The cracks in the Hawthorne home appeared slowly over years, not months. According to Cora's best friend, Letitia, it started with small rules that grew into ironclad laws. First came the phone checks. Otis would scroll through Cora's messages while she cooked dinner. Just making sure nobody disrespecting my wife, he'd say. Then he began tracking her location through apps, calling if she spent too long at the grocery store. By 2021, Cora couldn't wear certain outfits without his approval. Her makeup routine became another point of conflict. He'd make her wash her face if he thought she looked too good to go out, Letitia told police. Said other men would get ideas. The children learned to read their father's moods from the sound of his truck in the driveway. Loud music meant a good night. Silence meant trouble. Last Christmas, Otis smashed a new phone Cora's mother had given her. He claimed it was so she wouldn't need to share family photos on social media. 3 weeks later, he bought her a replacement, one that required his fingerprint to unlock. February brought the first visible bruise, a purple mark on Cora's wrist that she blamed on a kitchen accident. By March, she stopped going to church, citing migraines. The turning point came when Otis found messages between Cora and her cousin discussing women's shelters. That night, neighbors heard shouting that lasted until dawn. The next morning, Jalen showed up at school with a black eye he wouldn't explain. 2 days before the fatal incident, Cora received a text from a number she didn't recognize. It contained only a woman's name and a kiss emoji. When she questioned Otis, he grabbed her phone and deleted the message. "You calling me a cheater now?" he reportedly shouted. "After everything I provide?" That evening, Cora posted to Facebook, "Sometimes the people who say they love you the most hurt you the worst." The post received 43 likes. Otis was not among them. Friday evening brought a rare April thunderstorm to East St. Louis. The Hawthorne children sat at the kitchen table finishing homework when headlights swept across the front window 2 hours earlier than expected. Otis wasn't due home until midnight. Something was wrong. The truck door slammed with unusual force. Heavy footsteps pounded up the porch steps. Jalen quickly motioned for his siblings to gather their books and move toward their bedrooms. Otis entered soaking wet, his phone clutched in his fist. According to later police interviews with the children, their father's face showed a cold anger they hadn't seen before. "Where's your mama?" he asked, his voice too quiet. Cora emerged from the bathroom, instantly reading the danger in his stance. She told the children to go to their rooms, but Otis countered the order, "Nobody's going nowhere." His phone screen illuminated his face as he showed Cora her Facebook post and the comments below it. Someone had tagged a local women's shelter. Another suggested she get out while she could. Cora attempted to explain the post wasn't about him, but Otis cut her off. "You making me look bad online? To strangers? To my friends?" He paced the living room, muttering about respect and loyalty. The children huddled together on the couch, Deshawn beginning to cry. Otis stopped suddenly, staring at his phone. Something shifted in his expression as he tapped the screen several times. "You want people in our business? Fine, let's give them a show." Did you notice the warning signs? The isolation, the phone monitoring, the control over appearance, the threatening remarks. Domestic violence experts identify these as classic danger signals that often precede deadly outcomes, yet friends, family, and neighbors frequently miss them. Would you recognize these red flags in someone you know? What would you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your insight might save a life. Keep watching as we reveal what happened when Otis Hawthorne decided to broadcast his rage to the world, and how this public act of violence exposed years of private abuse. At 8:43 p.m., Otis Horn pressed the Go Live button on his Facebook app. The video quality was grainy in the dim living room light, but clear enough to show Cora standing against the wall and the 3 children seated on the couch. According to Facebook's records, the stream reached 212 viewers within the first minute. Many were Otis's co-workers and Cora's friends from church. The stream would eventually reach over 2,500 live viewers before Facebook's moderation system flagged it. Too late. Otis positioned the phone on the TV stand, angling it to capture the entire room. He paced back and forth, detailing Cora's disrespect to his growing audience. He instructed viewers to watch and learn about proper household discipline. When Jalen attempted to lead his siblings from the room, Otis blocked their path. Police reports indicate he forced the children back onto the couch, telling them, "You need to see what happens when your mama acts up." The oldest viewer of the stream, 73-year-old Ruth Gladys, immediately called 911, but couldn't provide the Hawthornes' exact address, only that they lived somewhere in East St. Louis. For nearly 7 minutes, Otis lectured his family and his audience about loyalty and public image. Cora made repeated attempts to calm him, suggesting they end the stream and talk privately. Each attempt further agitated him. The fatal moment came 14 minutes into the broadcast. When Cora mentioned ending the stream for the children's sake, Otis rushed toward her. The phone fell, briefly showing only ceiling before someone, likely Tasha, righted it. When the camera steadied again, it captured Cora on the floor near the coffee table, blood pooling beneath her head. Medical examiners would later determine she struck the table's metal corner with fatal force. Otis stood over her, the rage in his expression giving way to shock. The children's screams filled the audio feed as reality set in. The live stream continued for 6 more minutes before police lights flashed through the windows. Police arrived at the Hawthorne residence at 9:07 p.m., 17 minutes after the first 911 call. By then, the Facebook live stream had ended, but not before being recorded by dozens of viewers. Officer James Wilson described the scene in his report. Subject Otis Hawthorne sat motionless on the floor beside the victim, repeatedly saying, "I didn't mean it." 3 minors huddled in the kitchen doorway, visibly distressed. The children refused to be separated from each other. Paramedics noted that 5-year-old Deshawn had gone completely silent, while Tasha repeated, "Daddy pushed her" to anyone who approached. Jalen, the oldest, attempted to comfort his siblings while avoiding looking at either parent. Otis offered no resistance during arrest. Body camera footage shows him staring at his wife's body as officers led him away, asking once if the kids would be okay. Within hours, copies of the stream circulated across social media platforms despite removal efforts. East St. Louis police received over 400 calls that night from people who had witnessed the incident online. By morning, national news outlets picked up the story. Headlines focused on the public nature of the crime. Husband kills wife on Facebook Live, and children forced to watch fatal attack. Cora's sister Magnolia arrived at the police station just after midnight to collect the children. According to social workers present, none of the 3 would sleep that night. They sat together in the station's break room, jumping at every loud noise, asking repeatedly if their father was coming back. Otis Hawthorne spent 3 days in the county jail awaiting his arraignment on first-degree murder charges. Guards noted he barely ate and spoke only to ask about his children. On the 4th morning, Correctional Officer Miguel Diaz approached Cell 247 for routine breakfast delivery. His incident report states, "Inmate Hawthorne was found hanging from the upper bunk using bed sheets. No pulse detected. Medical called at 5:43 a.m. Despite resuscitation attempts, Otis was pronounced dead at 6:17 a.m. A search of his cell revealed a 4-page letter addressed to his children, written on commissary request forms. The contents were sealed by court order, but sources close to the investigation revealed Otis expressed remorse without directly acknowledging his actions. He repeatedly wrote that he never meant for this to happen, and asked his children to remember the good times. County Sheriff Damon Reynolds faced immediate questions about suicide watch protocols. The suspect showed no indicators of self-harm intent during intake assessment, he told reporters. This incident will undergo full review. News of Otis's suicide split public opinion. Many social media users expressed satisfaction, calling it justice served and saving taxpayers money. Others questioned whether his death denied Cora's family proper closure. Psychologist Dr. Keisha Williams, who specializes in family trauma, offered perspective. When perpetrators take their own lives, it often compounds the confusion for children. They're left with complex emotions, grief for both parents, anger, relief, guilt, and no opportunity for answers or resolution. The Hawthorne children were not informed of their father's death until later that afternoon, after meeting with child psychologists. According to their aunt Magnolia, 12-year-old Jalen's only response was a quiet, "He gone for real now?" Records obtained through Freedom of Information requests revealed that police had visited the Hawthorne residence 7 times in the 5 years before Cora's death. 6 calls were logged as domestic disturbance, with 1 classified as welfare check, initiated by Cora's sister. Not a single visit resulted in an arrest. Officers noted in reports that Cora either denied any physical altercation or refused to press charges. One report mentioned visible bruising, but indicated victim non-cooperative. The local women's shelter confirmed Cora had called their hotline twice in the previous year. During the second call, she inquired about housing options for a woman with 3 children, but never followed through with intake procedures. Jalen's school counselor had documented concerns about the boy's withdrawn behavior and occasional unexplained absences. She emailed Child Protective Services in January, but the case was classified as low priority due to staffing shortages. The system failed at every level, said State Representative Ayanna Jefferson during a press conference. How many times must a woman reach out before someone grabs her hand? The East St. Louis Police Department faced particular criticism for their handling of previous calls. Chief Gordon responded, "Without victim cooperation, our options are limited by current laws." Women's advocates pointed to the case as evidence of needed reform. Victims don't just decide not to cooperate, explained domestic violence counselor Teresa Luong. They're trapped by fear, financial dependence, and concern for their children. The system must recognize these barriers instead of using them as excuses for inaction. The Hawthorne children moved into their Aunt Magnolia's 2-bedroom apartment across town. Social workers described their initial adjustment as concerning but expected given the trauma. Jalen, once outgoing and athletic, refused to return to school for 3 weeks. When he finally did, teachers noted he no longer raised his hand or joined code playground activities. His former basketball coach reported he quit the team without explanation. 9-year-old Tasha developed severe separation anxiety, calling Magnolia repeatedly during school hours to make sure she was safe. Her nightmares became so frequent that her pediatrician prescribed sleep medication. Little Deshaun, at 5, showed his trauma differently. He began wetting the bed again and speaking in a whisper, as if afraid to make noise. During play therapy sessions, he built block towers and knocked them down repeatedly, sometimes hiding his eyes during the crash. Child psychologist Dr. Renee Phillips worked with all 3 children. They're processing dual losses, their mother through violence and their father through suicide. The additional layer of having witnessed the violence complicates their healing journey significantly. When asked about their father's death, the children showed mixed responses. Tasha expressed confusion. Is Daddy in heaven with Mommy? Are they still fighting? Jalen refused to discuss his father at all. 6 months after the incident, the children began attending a support group for young trauma survivors. Their aunt reported small improvements. Deshaun speaking at normal volume again, Tasha sleeping through some nights, Jalen occasionally smiling. East St. Louis residents processed the Hawthorne tragedy in starkly different ways. The neighborhood split between those who had suspected problems in the household and those shocked by what seemed impossible from a normal family. At Cora's funeral, hundreds gathered, many who knew her only through the viral video of her final moments. Pastor Michaels addressed the uncomfortable reality. We mourn not just a death, but our collective blindness to the signs. Otis's family largely avoided public statements, though his brother defended him on local radio. That wasn't the real Otis. Something broke in his mind that night. The debate continued across barbershops, church groups, and school board meetings. Some blamed social media for turning private matters public. Others questioned cultural attitudes that normalized male authority at any cost. In our community, we don't air dirty laundry, explained community elder Mrs. Washington. But that silence costs lives. Mental health professionals noted increased calls to crisis lines following the incident. The local men's outreach program reported record attendance at anger management workshops. East St. Louis High School introduced a relationship health curriculum. Parents initially resisted the program as too mature, but the principal stood firm. These conversations can't wait until it's too late. 7 months after the Hawthorne tragedy, 16-year-old Kevin Barnes went live on Instagram during an argument with his girlfriend at Jefferson High. The video showed him grabbing her wrist and saying, "Remember what happened to Mrs. Hawthorne? Don't make me go there." 3 students immediately reported the incident to school security. The girlfriend later told counselors that Kevin had referenced the Hawthorne case multiple times during their 4-month relationship. He watched that video over and over, she said. He talked about how Otis finally showed everyone who was boss. Kevin's father expressed shock at his son's behavior. We never talked about that case at home. Where does a kid even learn to think that way? Social media analysis revealed the original Hawthorne video had been viewed nearly 4.7 million times across platforms before complete removal. The cycle of violence had found new carriers, young men who saw dominance modeled, and young women who recognized the warning signs too late. Today, the Hawthorne children live with their Aunt Magnolia in a different city. Their names and location remain protected to give them a chance at normal lives. Domestic violence experts point to this case as a stark reminder that abuse rarely begins with physical violence. It starts with control over phones, friendships, appearance, and movement. Warning signs include constant checking of whereabouts, isolation from family and friends, financial control, jealousy disguised as protection, fear of partners' reactions. If you recognize these patterns in your relationship or someone you know, contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. One phone call might have saved Cora Hawthorne. It could save someone in your life too. What signals did you spot in the Hawthorne case that others missed? What would you have done differently if Cora lived in your neighborhood? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insight might help someone recognize danger in their own life. This channel exists to expose hidden truths and prevent future tragedies. If you found value in this story, subscribe now and turn on notifications. We bring new cases every day. Until next time, remember to look closer at the relationships around you. The next life you save might be someone you love. Stay safe, stay aware, and thank you for joining us today. See you on another story from the Altar of Secrets. Bye for now.